Hello, dear friends. I'm Daria Sinyagovskaya, an international real estate consultant and a licensed realtor in the state of Florida. I work at one Sotheby's International Realty, covering the Space Coast of Florida all the way down to South Florida. Today, we're going to talk about how, in 2025, you can purchase real estate either as an investment or for personal use, from a legal standpoint, in terms of immigration to the USA, and how to profit from this legal pathway. We're seeing more and more how visas, immigration pathways, investments, and transcontinental transactions are influencing regional development, immigration trends, and also, well, the profits from real estate investments. And to help us sort through all these issues, I've invited an expert in U.S. immigration and immigration law, the brilliant attorney Alena Ortiz. Alena, welcome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here to provide up-to-date information for 2025 and also to dispel the many myths that exist in this field, one of the most popular being, I'll buy a house and move to live in America. Unfortunately, just buying a house, as you know, and as many people have learned the hard way, doesn't by itself lead to any path to legalization. But many people are aware of such programs that exist in other countries, and they mistakenly think that the same path can be taken in America. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So today, we're going to debunk a lot of myths. Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Alena. We'll be talking about various immigration and investment tools and how to make this process as smooth, as efficient, and as successful in the long run as possible. Let's start with the big picture. What immigration trends are you seeing right now, in July 2025? Well, I wouldn't exactly call it a trend. Yes, the program has been around for quite a long time. The program I'm talking about is the EB-5 for investors who invest from 800,000 into various projects that help create jobs for American workers. That's one of the key criteria, right? And this program has already existed for quite a while. But why has it become so attractive today, this year, right? It's about the fact that the program might not be renewed. As we've all heard, President Trump is trying to introduce some kind of golden green card that everyone's talking about, but we haven't actually seen any legislation yet, apart from the website. And so, people have started to hurry up and look for projects to invest in, because the program is only authorized until 2027. And that means petitions must be filed by September 2026 to catch the last train. And since many projects take years to get approved and certified specifically for the EB-5 program, 2026 is really just around the corner. That's why you need to get in right now. And that way, even if the program ends, they will be, as we say. In other words, they will fall under this right, and they will keep the benefit of getting a green card directly. This is definitely one of the ways, as they say, if you invest and choose the right project. Yes, that's very important, because there are a lot of projects that are not viable. They fall apart, money gets stolen, and you can end up in serious trouble, yes. But if everything is done correctly, with the right specialists, this leads to a green card, and, accordingly, in the future, it will lead you to citizenship. Not just you, but also your immediate family members. We're talking about spouses and children, right? That's why this is quite a popular program right now. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let's talk a bit more about the team that's necessary for effective and legal immigration and investment in American real estate today. Alena, which countries are currently the most active in investing in U.S. real estate, and what has changed recently? Countries. I would say India and China. They have been the leaders in this program from the very beginning. And this is due to two factors. They have quite a lot of capital, yes, but we also have to recognize that the visa bulletin for these countries and all other categories, whether it's the talent visa or family immigration, has a significantly long waiting line. Whereas the investment route is the only remaining option that doesn't have such long queues specifically for citizens of these countries. That's why they always dominate the flow of investor applicants. Because if we look at citizens of CIS countries, yes, there are investors, but they have all these other opportunities open to them. For example, they can do family immigration quickly, or possibly make an E2 investment, which requires significantly fewer resources, right? We're talking about investments starting from 75,000, not 800 plus, right? Accordingly, those citizens have other paths open to them, and they often take advantage of those. Maybe they're talented in business, and we can do a talent visa, but specifically for citizens of China and India, this is really the most advantageous option. Daria, could you tell us how the global market growth has affected you as a consultant? You must be getting a lot of inquiries and questions from people because the global trend of migration is being widely discussed right now. People are moving from all sorts of countries. Tell me, how do you see the situation today?
That's a great question. I see some really big changes. I work in the Florida coastal region, and specifically on the Space Coast, where there are huge changes happening in the technology, aerospace, and defense sectors. Accordingly, a significant portion of these recent changes are intrinsically connected to the dynamic real estate market. If during the initial phase of the COVID-19 pandemic we observed what was commonly referred to as a seller's market, characterized by high demand and limited supply, the current real estate market has now largely stabilized and has become what we precisely define as neutral, offering a more balanced environment for both buyers and sellers. This effectively means that residential homes currently listed for sale today typically take approximately 4.5 months to successfully sell on the market. This indicates price stabilization and gives buyers the opportunity to purchase something in a more objective market.
So, does that mean they can negotiate the price and get a discount?
Yes, and in this, of course, your agent plays a very important role.
Who will handle the negotiations directly?
Yes, absolutely. But here we're talking about how the market dynamics are changing. If during the pandemic the market was artificially stimulated and mortgage rates were 2.5 to 3%, that was artificial stimulation of the market. Now the market has stabilized, and it has reached from 6.5% to 7%. And this is the real market situation. Again, there are opportunities for buyers to get a good deal on a house, but also for sellers to sell their house. So this situation is called a neutral market. Can I add something else here?
Of course.
Thank you. It should be particularly noted that in May of 2025, a significant number of 1,200 residential homes were successfully sold in Brevard County, Florida. So the market is dynamic and attractive for real estate transactions today.
And who is selling? These are people who came during COVID, bought property, and are now moving back to their states. Or people are just leaving Florida. Who is selling?
Today's sellers are very diverse. There are those who are relocating to other states. There are people who are selling to buy something bigger or smaller. You always need to look at the market individually and base your decisions on your goals as a seller, buyer, or investor. These goals can be different, so the market and its focus will change depending on your goals and motivations.
Daria, international buyers ask a lot of questions. Have they become, so to speak, more informed and inquisitive when asking you questions?
There are a lot of questions. The main question is, which states are the most favorable for moving to the US and investing in the US?
The same thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Where is it cheaper to move?
Yes. Well, we know that everyone has a different idea of what cheaper means and a different understanding of how.
They picture their life here, for example, right? And their needs too schools, kids. Some people don't have that, right? So it's completely different for everyone. You need an individual approach for each client.
Yes. But we're also talking about how it's important to understand the concept of lifestyle, your way of living. For example, the climate in Florida, there are so many opportunities here for families and to be by the water. So, there are a lot of factors here, as we just discussed, and all these questions come up with foreign clients who are considering moving to the US. Florida is a leader in many aspects of immigration. In particular, Florida's tech sector is developing right now. The most important thing in this matter is to assemble the right team, and that's basically what we started with today. It's important to clearly understand all the steps of immigration that will take you from your initial idea to your final destination successfully and painlessly. Your team should include a lawyer, an attorney, an immigration attorney, a business attorney, a realtor, cross.
An accountant, I would say, is essential.
An international lender, someone who will help you with loans and assist you in understanding the financial aspects of your real estate purchase. Accordingly, this particular team will work most effectively and efficiently if all of the specialized experts are knowledgeable about FIRPTA, about investment law for foreigners.
We also use FIRPTA certified brokers to analyze projects. Yes. That is, she directly checks all the projects where investments are made specifically for these purposes. Her certification is very important because I want my clients to be able to invest with peace of mind. Of course, we can never fully guarantee a 100% return or the success of a project. But at the very least, we do our due diligence, as they say, meaning we carry out the necessary checks to ensure that this project has a very high chance of success, as they say.
Absolutely.
You can't get anywhere without a team here.
Yes. Wonderful. So, we've assembled a team, and we understand that a team is absolutely necessary in the process of immigration and real estate investment in the US. My question to you, Alena, what mistakes do investors often make?
Well, I would say the first mistake is when they just want to buy a house without checking with an immigration attorney whether this purchase will actually help them in the immigration process at all. They think, that's it, I bought a house, now I'll live here, and that somehow gives me some kind of right just because I own property in this country. But in reality, that's not the case. The fact that you bought a house is wonderful. Congratulations. But buying a house by itself in no way leads to legalization, specifically in the United States. Anyone from any country can own a house in the US without any further green cards or anything like that. Yes. Another mistake is when big investors enter the investment market. They just look at projects and decide where they want to invest based on their own gut feeling. Like, maybe I just recently met this person or saw them somewhere on Instagram. They pour millions into investments, then the person disappears or the project fails because it was just hyped up. And unfortunately, there's a very high-profile case coming up in Russia now, where celebrities and TV hosts were brought in to promote the construction of villas, and the project went bankrupt, while the person lived a lavish lifestyle, and no one is getting their money back. Yes, so don't make these mistakes. Use a long-term strategy, do your research, and seek advice. And when you come to an EB-5 project, I personally always use a FINRA licensed broker who understands the process and does all the due diligence on the projects, paperwork, taxes. Because you have to understand, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a tax specialist, I'm not a builder. I can only be responsible for my own part. That's why I always bring in people who are professionals in this industry, with their own licenses and certifications, and this doesn't cost the client anything at all. But your due diligence is still done, and I believe it's very reckless not to use such services when they're available and cost you nothing, yet provide such a high level of peace of mind in the process. And preparing the case actually becomes much easier too, because all this information is collected by the company, and the companies selected for these projects already have a long track record of approvals, which tells us there's a potentially good outcome for the client.
Wonderful, Alena. Actually, my next question was about this. What services do you provide to investors who want to come to the US or to Florida? And what kind of infrastructure do you offer? Please tell us, if you can, a bit more in detail about how the processes work, specifically. Our viewers would be interested to know, do they need to come in with a project idea already, or can brokers also consult them so they can understand the market and so on?
That's a great question. Many people often don't know where to start. And you only need to have an idea if you want to do, as they say, direct investment. Direct investment is for people who want to open their own business specifically. These are the people who need to have an idea of what exactly they want to do, how we're going to implement it. Here, the scope of work is much broader because we need to think through the idea, the business plan, and more or less start putting it into action, right? Because we have to show that the money is already at investment risk. It's not just money sitting in an account. And here we're talking about the higher investment threshold, right? Meaning it's $1,050,000 plus. Why do I say that? Because you'll need quite a lot of additional investment to start a business, right? So, the minimum threshold is $1 million, but most likely you'll need much more than that. And here we're talking about developing a business plan, the project concept, hiring employees, directly creating the required number of jobs, and later proving that the project is working and growing. That's why it's so much more difficult to do direct investment. And that's why I always tell people, if you have the opportunity and already have the money, use the smaller amount, 800,000, choose a project with a broker, and the broker will show you everything. You can fly out to any project, They'll give you a tour, show you everything. There are many clients who want to see for themselves to make sure it's not just a made-up project. Nowadays, AI can create really good renders and holograms. So you always have the option to go visit the project, check it out, take a tour. Again, it all depends on what stage the project is at. But the broker will discuss all of this with you. So, if you're only ready to invest in 2 years, you'll be looking at one type of project, those that are just in the early stages, so to speak, just getting certified for future development. There won't be much to see there, because most likely it's just a construction pit, maybe some tractors parked around. And projects that are already underway might be in the second stage of planning and construction, yes. You can visit those, take a tour while the project is still only partially sold. You can come and see the final phase. For me, it's always really interesting, actually doing these tours, coming to see everything. You feel like you're part of it.
That sounds wonderful. It's incredible when these projects develop, and you, as a consultant or a lawyer, are also involved in the project. Alena, could you talk a bit about real estate investments as a pathway to immigration, maybe some commercial projects?